All right, and we are back. T&W Podcast, episode number 12. I'm your host, Neville Thomas, and I also have
Kevin Wang, the one and only.
one and only. I mean, come on, man's a legend. Either way,
Ignore that one and only part, though. That was just a joke.
I don't know. Well, with 7.5 billion people in this world, there's probably another Neville Thomas and another Kevin Wang.
Oh, there's like 15 Kevin Wangs at the bare minimum.
At the bare minimum. Kevin's starting off this podcast with jokes. Come on, everybody. Sorry about
that's just a statistic right there.
Okay. Well, I wonder how many Neville Thomases there are, and it would be an interesting conversation. Just going with Neville. What do you think, Neville? I think a lot of things, Neville. It would be a very interesting conversation, just talking with the same person, right? Same name person, at least. But we got a few articles we're excited to talk about. We are personal finance enthusiasts, and we want to talk, and that's going to be more of like towards the end. But first, Kevin's going to lead us off with SoftBank. He's got an article, which is kind of interesting.
All right, so it might be old news at this point, but SoftBank spent about $900 million, give or take, to acquire a relatively significant share, about 6%, I believe, in Pacific Biosciences. So they're sort of, they're just a bio firm. They do a lot of stuff with DNA sequencing and research into diseases. So that's interesting. But the main reason I chose this one was because SoftBank is well known for making both very radical and very significant investments in new and different companies. I mean, it's worked out in the past. There's been several notable ones, but there's also several ones that have notably not worked out. For example, if everyone's heard of WeWork, that was a SoftBank investment. We all know where that went. Everyone said it was great until it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
That's how everybody takes on everything. Everybody's like, this is fantastic. It's amazing. I mean, come on. This is like the next thing from heaven. And then boom, once something bad goes down, everything comes collapsing.
Everyone's like, this is so obvious. How did I not see this before?
Yes, but sorry, continue going on, Kevin.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I just thought it was interesting because SoftBank does anything SoftBank touches, it makes it interesting.
Well, here's what I'll say. So you said this is more of a DNA sequencing company?
Yes.
So is that more of like into a customization? Am I wrong, or is this
you mean
what's the goal with DNA sequencing? Let's look this up here.
Okay, so this is more treatment. It's more to research and development treatments to diseases. It's not like a CRISPR bioengineering type of thing. It's not like Monsanto or what is it now? It's Bayer now. It's not like GMOs or anything like that, or GMHs, genetically modified humans, or anything like that. It's just, diseases and how to treat them.
Yeah. So DNA sequencing is a technique that is used to discover the sequences of nucleoids within a DNA molecule. This is an extremely important task because DNA stores the genetic material of an organism. Okay. So I guess my understanding is more of like they're trying to understand the information that's inside for a person. And I think that's kind of interesting because it relates back to one of the classes that I had taken. And in that one, the speaker spoke about how we're coming to an age of customization, right? Like just things are customized these days. Like we all have our phones, but you can customize the design to that whichever way you'd like. There's a reason why I think Windows, people who have Windows love Windows just because you can customize it to fit whatever your needs. Like if you look at Kevin's setup over there, I mean, it's wonderful. Like, have you seen like a tall screen before? I haven't. Talking about Kevin.
I'm sure you have.
I promise you I have not. And so with customization is becoming more and more popular, moving away from standardization. So I think like SoftBank is making a good but a long-term bet right now. Long-term investment, not bet. Investment. There's a difference. For the future because I think this could be like it. First is just understanding the information. Then the next stage is more of like how do you help, right? But I think SoftBank is moving in the right direction. Kevin, you look a little puzzled. You want to ask me something?
I don't 100% understand what you're talking about. How would you customize? Are you talking about like
No. Okay, so there's people have different genetic issues, right?
yes,
Sometimes whether it's like sicknesses that get passed on, so treatments.
but no, but this is talking about treatment
This is
of
just sequencing. We're just
yeah.
understanding the
This is talking
material.
about this is talking about sequencing of diseases. It's not talking about sequencing of genetic defects,
I am totally
genetic abnormalities.
I am so wrong. Oh my goodness.
Rip.
I need to
Neville's
stop talking.
interpretation level 0.
Yes, today's interpretation is at 0. Oh boy,
Either way, this is interesting.
it will be.
I'm sure it's quite majorly related to COVID, but I don't know what makes Pacific Biosciences stand out compared to the others because they did acquire 6%, which might sound small, but in the world of corporations, 6% is a huge amount. So
Numbers like small numbers, like people say 50,000 is a lot. For corporations, that's nothing. But 5%,
like a
6%.
percent,
Ooh,
yeah.
that's a
So like
lot.
a single percent of Apple is like a couple million or like a couple, like it's millions of dollars. Like a percent of Apple is still like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's quite sizable. But yeah, I mean that was just something I wanted to bring up. Do you have any more thoughts on it or?
No, after me being so brutally wrong, I am
I was
terrified.
too afraid to talk now. He's
I'm
like,
too afraid. I'm
oh,
very
no.
afraid. It's not my field of expertise, nor am I claiming it my field of expertise. Nor do I ever want to claim it as my field of expertise because it's not where I'm at. But I think it's interesting. This kind of like investment, like so, it's an interesting investment that'll move. It'll become more popular into the future. So
Yes.
the decisions they're making is a pretty interesting one, indeed. So Kevin's got the next article of a J&J vaccine and the FDA authorizing it, and this is relatively new. And so,
Yeah, so
Kevin, go ahead.
there's 3 main vaccine producers right now. There's Moderna, there's J&J, and then there's Pfizer, or if you want to pronounce it Pfizer or something. I don't know, but it's Pfizer. Anyway,
Pfizer. Yes, we call it Pfizer. We live in Michigan. We call it Pfizer. Go ahead, Kevin.
But anyway, J&J, Johnson & Johnson. I don't know why they don't call it J squared or something, but so
I'm assuming that there's maybe 2 different Johnsons that were the founders, but we don't know. Go ahead, Kevin.
So J&J, they said that they're planning on producing 100 million vaccines by the end of July, which puts it at roughly slightly under a third of the US population, which is pretty impressive considering it's just one of the big 3 firms. So just based off of that, you would think that everyone would be vaccinated by like midsummer, and maybe we can get that in-person internship. But yeah, it's like it seems like maybe we'll have an in-person fall semester type of thing. But one thing I noticed was a while back, maybe I want to say like a week, 2 weeks. I was talking to my friends about the MSU, or at least the East Lansing area sort of vaccine rollout plan, and that sort of called for like optimistically 60% of people vaccinated by December
of 2021.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I was looking at that. I was like, wait, hold on, something isn't right here. There's so many vaccines. The only reasoning I could possibly think of for that is maybe the vaccine distribution infrastructure is particularly terrible. Or maybe not terrible, but it's not up to the task. So that's my only thoughts on it so far. What do you think, Noel?
so this is kind of interesting to talk about because when speaking about how the vaccine and all of that, I know in the previous podcast we've talked about the vaccine and the rollout and how like it's been longer than expected, which is truthfully it's not surprising because things just typically take longer than what you plan. Like even when you just maybe it's homework and you plan it for 1 hour and it takes 2 hours or 3 hours.
I think that's just because like we're playing games or something, but
Not always. Even when I'm completely focused, it still takes a while. And that's just
occasionally you get the pleasant surprise where you're done in like 10 minutes and you're like, wait, what just happened?
Something's not right at that moment. You're like, what? Something's not right.
Yeah.
But excuse me. But yes, so that's how it's been. And I think I am necessary. I'm more like I guess worried about the infrastructure, more of how things will operate, how it will be like distributed necessarily. I believe manufacturing will be able to, as long as they're like following the regulations and stuff, it'll be able to continue going. There's many healthcare companies out there. It's just not just following those regulations, but how it gets distributed is key. Those logistics that follow it will be something that'll be impressive to see. And I think that's where, like, again, the term supply chain, that term that's on Kevin's vest over there, supply chain management.
I don't think you can read it from here.
Well, if you cannot read it, that's okay. I just said it. It's supply
Oh.
chain management. Kevin's flexing over here with his vest. And it'll be becoming more popular because if this vaccine is available and it's just not being distributed, people will want, and I believe will be more willing to help out, get it become more distributed. There'll be a greater amount of demand if the vaccine is available, yet it's just not distributed. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah. Like I said, I believe it might just be infrastructure isn't quite capable of distributing it yet. I guess it makes sense. Hospitals aren't really something that could pivot, or the healthcare system can't really pivot that quickly.
I mean, we have talked about like how in the past, some of the greatest like minds like Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and like how many great minds, like sometimes they went after the healthcare industry trying to help improve it, but they ultimately said that it was way too complicated.
They're just like, screw it, I'm out.
Well, they didn't say screw it. They just said
they were like,
I
tried. I tried.
Yeah, they tried and they said I can't do anymore. And so I think it'll be interesting. It's more of like, again, like where are the places? Is it just going to be hospitals? Is it going to be possibly in schools, different areas, places that are more popular, right?
As far as I know, I believe there's a abandoned, well, not abandoned, but like a non-functional Sears store over in the edge of Lansing, East Lansing area. I believe that's where they're doing those vaccines right now.
Kevin, you saying non-functional made me laugh.
Non-functional, defunct, abandoned.
Okay. No, Kevin. Okay.
Ran down, out of business.
I have been speaking about Sears. How long has it been since you've been to a Sears store? I think it's been for me at least 5 years.
Probably like 20 years.
20 years.
I'm not even 20, so.
You're not even. So you've never been inside of a Sears store, Kevin?
I don't believe so.
Oh, Kevin, you missed out.
I don't remember being in one.
Sears. I remember going to a Sears store. Yeah, I remember going to one. And they were one of the biggest companies ever. And now you don't. At least in Michigan. In our
only see when I hear Sears, I don't even think of the store. I just think of the Sears Tower.
Really? I think of the Sears store. Okay, it's an interesting thought. See how quickly things have just changed. Like
in 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, things have like moved up. Who's number one? Amazon's number one. So Amazon quite possibly took over Sears to a point.
My camera randomly shut off.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, Kevin's playing peekaboo now, everybody.
Now I'm here, now I'm not.
We'll see how long you last. But I do think that'll be something that's interesting. But yes,
maybe if you make the right calls, you'll be a millionaire in 20 years.
I mean, here's the thing: if you can help out in this rollout, the people who are able to help out with this rollout help make it easier and guarantee that that these vaccines get to where they need to be at the time, or even sooner than they need to be at, will be will be greatly rewarded in the marketplace for sure, because there is a demand for them. So different logistics companies will be sought after, and
Especially those consultants. No.
so exactly, and getting out there is going to be one of the keyest things, one of the biggest things, and consultants will be key. And you might be wondering, well, Kevin, why did you say consultants? And let me give my thought, and then I'll have Kevin talk. Sorry, Kevin, I know I've been rambling a lot. But it's with consultants, they're able to identify more of like where are the weak spots before you even try out, right? They're able to take the data, crunch the numbers, and give you, hey, we got to fix this, and this, and we're going to do it this way. That's what consultants are known to be doing, where they come in and fix extremely tough problems. And they give you new market views of how we can improve, how to move the next stage. That's often why companies hire consultants. And so maybe hiring even consultants might be a good idea for some companies who are trying to get into this market spot, so that they have the most effective route, so that right off the bat, they are able to provide great value instead of having to have other issues along the way. But Kevin, go ahead.
I mainly said consultants for two reasons. One, consultants are paid quite highly, but also they sort of have more of a broader view on everything, since when they get hired, it's sort of expected that they could come in and do everything supply chain. So I think that's pretty important. But the second thing is mainly because, Neville, you mentioned a lot before that you're really into consulting, or like you were looking towards the consulting career path. So
yeah, I've looked into it, and I mean, I'm open to everything and anything, truthfully, and I like to be that way. But consulting was something I've looked into, and so yeah, consultants need to always be on top of their game, because there's different types of projects that come, and even in COVID, like at first companies were losing consultants because they just needed to shrink costs immediately, and consultants were one of the first people to go. However, what many of the accounting firms were not just accounting, sorry, many consulting firms, some of which could be an accounting firm, were holding on, had saved up, and had good financial advice, good finances, and we'll talk more about that in our next article. But they had a good financial infrastructure put in place, so that soon the demand had risen. Consultants were needed by companies right after, because of the work that they're able to do. They're able to crunch the numbers and show you new ways in which to innovate and keep on moving forward. And people hired consultants during COVID. Sometimes there was virtual issues, and just moving to that virtual format, but also how do you deliver products? One of the biggest questions that people weren't expecting was ordering a car online. I mean, Kevin, have you ever thought about ordering a car online and just having it to your house before you've even test driven it?
I thought about it once, and then I was like, nah.
Exactly. You like to try before you buy, and so do I. But
not all the time, but for more critical items, yes, quite obviously.
Like a vehicle, and yeah. And so, if you like, and I promise you, like, there's possibly some consultants behind the scene helping out, understanding, hey, this is how we're going to help. And companies like Carvana were able to utilize this market space, that market demand where people were officially stuck at home, but there were still some car buyers, or they had money to spend on some high ticket items. Because again, the COVID began around mid-March. We're almost at the 1 year anniversary. At least when it hit like
that's
the US.
That's not something to be celebrated.
It is not something to be celebrating, because we've been at home for such a long time. However, it did show a lot of work that was done.
Yes. All right. So I think we've pretty heavily exhausted the vaccine topic. So next up, finances. Everyone loves finances, right?
Yes.
Blue. But anyway, Noel's found a really interesting article on how Americans are saving.
Here's the thing. Exactly. And Kevin, that was actually a pretty good intro. I was not sure where you were going with it, but then last second you changed it up, and I was like, whoa, Kevin, you're surprising me here. And so here's the thing. It was this is an article again on the Wall Street Journal. It says U.S. retirement crisis hits Black Americans hard, and they go in to speak about how people who are sometimes, and they spoke about like a woman who is in her late 40s, has in the low five figures for her retirement, her 401k, and that's not a good place to be in your 40s. And so that was going to take a significant amount of time for her to come out of it. And so people have, and so this is something to be spoken about, where people are at first they're making the right decisions. They're investing, and yet now, even after they invest, they're not able to keep that investment compounding. Rather, they're losing to it. And so me and Kevin, we are enthusiasts of finances, and so we wanted to speak about this on the aspect of what is, I guess, like right. How should we do this? And so let's tackle this even further into this article. And one aspect that was spoken about is that many Black Americans are hampered in saving for retirement by such factors as less intergenerational wealth, more college debt, lower incomes, and lower home ownership rates than whites, according to the academic and government data. So, and so they speak about how the different types of retirement savings that are put in across different incomes. And this brings up a big question. What is, like, I guess, the first financial decisions to bring? And I think during the pandemic, one of the biggest things that I saw, thankfully, I didn't need to, but I saw the immense value in, was the need of an emergency fund. Kevin, can you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I don't really understand how a lot of people don't have emergency funds. I assume it's just like their money drain is too high, or their cost of living is too high to start building one, or maybe they just drain their emergency fund. But like, COVID happens, you don't get a job. You look at your bank account and you're like, there's only $100 in there, and you're basically screwed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. When you lose your job and you only have $100 in your bank account and you're living paycheck to paycheck, that can be extremely tough. That many Americans are going through. So, I guess one of the first things that I had listened to, and I listened to many different pieces of financial advice. Some of which I think, at least in this
some are
one,
good, some are bad.
Yes, one that is so true. Kevin speaks about that, and we want to give you guys the best information, all good, no bad. And so something that was spoken about was, and these are just our opinions. We're not certified financial professionals, but one of the first things, at least that I did with just working a job, was as fast as I can, which took me a while because I was still in high school.
My camera again.
Kevin's playing peekaboo. Kevin, are you playing peekaboo with the audience?
I don't know. I think my camera connection is pretty bad, but
okay. Well, I think you're playing peekaboo. If you guys are thinking he's just having fun and playing peekaboo, please comment that.
Maybe I am.
I need support here.
Nah.
I need support here.
Neville already proved himself wrong earlier. Maybe it's just
hey, wow. Well, guess what? If you think Kevin's not playing peekaboo, also comment that. And let's see how many comments comes up, Kevin. Either way, one of the best pieces of financial advice I heard was at least just save $1,000. And even though I was in high school, it took me a bit, but just saving that $1,000 of emergencies, because as still college students, I've been blessed with different things, and so like saving $1,000 is just one of the most important things to do.
Yeah, you never know when you're gonna get a ticket, or if your income gets cut off, or your tire blows, your brake falls off, your heat shield snaps, or you break your exhaust on accident.
Or speaking about just disasters, I'm just imagining somebody driving, and I know this has definitely happened, but you start off with four wheels on your car. Somewhere along the way, one wheel just takes a loose, starts going. you only have you only have three wheels, so your car stops. You never know when things like that is going to happen. I mean, I'd hope you never lose one wheel out of your four wheels, but I mean, sometimes things just happen, right? Um, and so that's that was one of the biggest things we wanted to talk about because with investing, I think one of the most famous quotes that was like spoken about, and I forgive me if I am not getting this to the fullest extent. I am trying to paraphrase here, but Charlie Munger has spoken about how no one became a billionaire through day trading. And he's speaking about not just he's not trying to go after day traders necessarily, but he's talking about is like the need of compound growth, where you're consistently in the marketplace and you're letting it grow over long periods of time.
By the way, I'm just gonna cut you off there.
Go ahead. Always,
super quick
Kevin.
comment. People have become millionaires by day trading.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you should probably tell Charlie Munger that.
Well, no, it's a recent example, so it doesn't matter as much.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. See, I was not aware. Now that's twice.
Of course, you've definitely heard about it. You probably just didn't connect the dots.
We did not. Either way, that's twice for today. We'll see if Kevin gets me to 3. However, still, like the importance of like compound growth, and just first having that some of that savings. And one of the biggest other pieces of advice is like after saving, even when you start investing, you should also be saving for 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you're living on your own, this could be food, rent, utilities, and just getting 3 to 6 months. Once you have 3 to 6 months, trust me, that will become freedom. And like if you're a college student who doesn't necessarily know because you're dependent on your parents, or you don't have many expenses for it, in which case that's totally fine, and in that case at least have $1,000. But if you are living on your own and you live paycheck to paycheck, just getting those savings in is one of the most key things. And then you can spend time investing and letting that money compound, because when you have savings available, it's so worth it. But when you have to withdraw from your investments, and at this time, like imagine for the people who withdrew in March, you had to sell a significant amount. And so in those times, you're just it's a lose-lose. You're stopping compound growth, but you're also selling at a loss. And I think that's one of the things that scares people with investing. So I think that like the first thing is just save that, like have that money saved, keep it ready, but also after that, then begin investing. And only after you've saved can you truly begin investing, so that that compound growth happens and you can buy in at the dips and you can be prospering at the highs. Kevin, your thoughts? I know I talked a lot.
I'd agree with most of that. Just keep buying, really. Buy
and hold is a strategy.
Buy and hold is a strategy, but it still depends on your financial goals. If it's just like, I'm going to work a steady job, keep buying and holding, retired with a ton of money, buy and hold is your goal. But if it's something like, hey, I have a planned expenditure coming up in like 10 years and it's going to be like wipe out everything, maybe I wouldn't 100% recommend day trade, but you could reevaluate day trading as a strategy.
I see. The reason why I typically like to avoid day trading is because and not many people, including myself, I feel like I would be personally bad at day trading.
It's essentially gambling somewhat. It's not 100%. You could maybe influence your own probabilities a lot more if you invest in areas where you're knowledgeable, but it's still kind of like gambling, you know. You might be able to win a couple thousand at the start, but at the end of the day, the house always wins.
And in this case, like the house could be anybody else. Many people invest, so there's just so many, right? So I necessarily wouldn't support day trading. Although now I have a question for you, Kevin, and I think like we've talked about this before. Me and you have opposing different points of view. So I feel like every single investor does some sort of buy and hold, but then they do some sort of interesting investing. I know friends of ours who do margin trading. If I'm
I
getting
don't think
their
margin
words
trading.
correctly.
I wouldn't recommend margin trading unless you're 100% sure something's gonna go up.
Yeah, it's extremely risky, and you can lose possibly a ton of money.
If you're like 60% sure it'll go up, don't do it. If you're like 90% sure, probably don't do it.
and he's only saying for 100% only. But here's the thing: nothing in this world is 100%. So he's really saying don't do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Margin trading is a bad idea. You put yourself in debt to do that. If it goes off, wow, you made a lot of money. If it doesn't go off, wow, you owe a lot of money.
yeah, and it can sometimes
I'd say it's better. Yeah, it's best. It's the best idea in day trading, at least if you're doing day trading, to just go off of what you have. Because worst case scenario, you just lose all your money. Margin trading, worst case scenario, you basically just screwed yourself over for like the next 10 years or something.
Exactly. But I wanted to, and Kevin, I know you like to do some day trading, or sorry,
A little bit.
week trading. Let's call it that way, because you don't like you're not sitting buying and selling numerous stuff during the day, but we call it week trading. Either way, I'm a guy who enjoys. I like commodities. I like gold and silver. I think they're interesting commodities.
Neville's
and
attracted to shiny things.
I am. I do like shiny things. And so gold and silver are commodities that I've seen as like hedges. But Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on this. When you save up cash, and this is no means what we recommend for an emergency fund, but let's just say you're saving up for something big next 10 years, like maybe a marriage, right? Like maybe a wedding,
Yeah.
Or maybe a vehicle that you want to buy outright in cash. You don't want to take a loan on.
You would. I mean, it's a viable strategy.
People
Viable
do that.
strategy.
And so in which case I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts about how, like, when you hold on to money, you lose, you're losing to inflation, right?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I'd say if you know you have a big thing coming up in 10 years, don't do cash no matter what. But if you want to like guarantee it's going to stay the same value, I'd say if two options I would recommend, or I'd say you look again, and we're not financial advisors, but I'd say there's two options you could consider, or three options you can consider, but two are that are more viable. So that would be index funds, bonds, and then the less viable one would just be gold or silver.
Yep. Sorry, excuse me. One moment, please. We will be pausing, and we will be resuming very shortly. All right, I apologize for that interruption, and we are back. So, yes. So the less viable way, which is interesting that you say less viable. So, I've spoken with you about silver before.
See, here's my opinion. Index funds tend to retain or gain value. Even if there's like a crash, might take like 2 or 3 years and it's still back at the same value. So I'd say that's more worth it because you get your you have your original money, plus you're very likely to have additional money on top of that. Same thing with bonds. You get your original amount plus all the sort of payments you get. Gold, I'd say it might gain value, but it still locks in the value or locks in the worth of the money, right? So if you put
it locks in the value of the money.
Yeah, it doesn't increase it much. So it's like it's better than just leaving it in cash because you're counteracting some of inflation. But I'd say it's not as good as bonds or
really.
Yeah, because bonds, I feel like they're competing with interest as well. Because
I mean, I wouldn't say like people don't.
Because bonds
I would say
Bonds are just long-term debt. Bonds are just long-term debt by any organization, whether it's the government or a company. So,
Yep.
I
No,
mean,
I'm aware, but
they have to compete with gold. They can't just be like, "Hey, we'll do exactly the same as interest." They have to like be better than it.
true.
You know?
But here's where I'm going to challenge you now. With that, gold is better than bonds. Because the only people who can guarantee, like 100% guarantee, a bond is the United States.
Yes.
Because technically a company could go bankrupt in the next year, 1 year, 2 years if their finances are bad. And sometimes that does happen for companies, right? And so the thing is however, with bonds, let's just say you lock in that value. And no, you don't lock it. Apologies. You don't lock in value with a bond. You lock in a dollar amount. Now,
Yes.
that's problematic because over time, your yield you're getting for a bond typically is not beating a inflation yield, or in the long term, it will not.
No, it tends to meet or exceed because
Go ahead, keep on talking. I'm gonna try to find some data right now. Go ahead.
I feel like it generally does, because what is the point of a bond? It's a company saying, "Hey, we need money. Lend us money. It'll be good for you." But if it's going to be like, "Hey, lend us money," guess what? It's going to be worse for you than just holding in cash. There's literally no incentive there.
Okay, and then so let's look up the U.S. Treasury. So you're saying, okay, yes, holding in cash is not what is wholeheartedly recommended unless it is your emergency fund. If you're saving up money, it's not recommended.
Okay, emergency fund in cash is great.
Yeah, emergency fund in cash is fantastic, but if you're saving for like something like big, like a car or a wedding, then it is not recommended. But sorry, keep on.
Although I feel like you shouldn't save for a car. Because like if you're spending a lot of money on a car, that's just all going to depreciate away. Same thing with a wedding. It's like, yes, it's great in the moment and it's sort of traditional, but you're also spending a lot of money. You're just reducing your wealth for like a day of fun. And then house, maybe, if it's a good investment. But
I mean, you want to buy a house
my
in all
opinion.
cash?
maybe.
Kevin, if you're able to buy a house in all cash,
you shouldn't.
You might, it depends.
Okay, if you're able to buy a house in all cash, right? I don't know how you got the money to buy a house in all cash, because obviously you're financially incompetent.
Exactly, but at that point, I feel like you would want to use, if you can get a very low interest rate, like 2%, or maybe, I don't know if, yeah, like at 2% or 2.5%, anything under 4% ideally, then you would just want to like save up a lot of cash, maybe even a year's worth of payments after paying down your down payment, and then taking that rest of that money and investing it, because you may have much greater rates of return.
Yes.
Or possibly even double.
All right, so back to bonds, though.
Okay, so I
feel like bonds are still better than gold.
Sure. And I'm going to say why that's not a good idea. So gold is known as a hedge against, it's known as a hedge against the economy. Like when things go down, gold goes up. Good. And I'm not sure if I've spoken about it, but I'll explain it again, because Kevin, I know me and you have personally spoken about this, and it's because gold and silver and real estate are assets that can never hit zero, truly. With stocks, you can get I'm not sure if it's actually
bankruptcy or anything.
Yeah, a pink slip, basically, saying the stock is no longer valued, or you get like 10 cents, because that's just like the basic value.
Yeah.
And even as a stockholder, you typically are the last ones in line. Any bond holders are in line before you are for receiving their money back. So
you don't hear anything in my background, do you?
No, I do not.
Okay.
So with gold, however, when you hold on to it, at the very least, the demand can drop but it will
Yes.
never hit zero.
Yes.
Your value is retained inside of gold. Additionally, when times are turbulent and people are worried, they will run towards gold, and the price of gold and silver will go up, while the price of stocks will go down. Because again, stocks can go to zero, while gold and silver cannot. And
Yes.
it's either gold, silver, or real estate, or I believe museum quality artwork. But museum quality artwork and real estate are typically very expensive, and even for just like people are able to go and get a loan for a home. Getting a loan is a long process, especially if you want to make sure you have a good deal, like at a low interest rate. So because it's a significantly long process, it's not recommended. And so people will go to gold and silver because it's a lot. Those are cheaper alternatives. Now, coming back to these yields that we have here. So currently for January 2021,
Okay.
the chart that
I'm not saying I'm saying bonds are good for saving if
No,
you're
here's what I'll
expecting
say.
regular market conditions, but gold is good as a hedge if you're expecting the market to crash.
Well, it's not just that, though. Here's the thing. So I looked at the daily Treasury yield curve rates on the U.S. Department of Treasury website.
Yes.
looking at this, so the date of today's date, 3/01, the time of this recording, it for 1 month there is a 0.03 yield, and if I'm correct, I believe that's a percentage, 0.03%. 2 months, same thing, and let's just say 5 years is what we were talking about. You get a 0.71%. Okay, that is the yield you're going to get. That's the interest you're going to get on your money. Assuming, okay, but let's put that back into the current inflation rate. And so for January to
no, that's way
January,
we don't even need to talk about that. That's way under inflation rate.
Exactly.
Corporate bonds. Look up corporate bonds.
Okay. Well, but corporate bonds are not guaranteed.
Yes, but I mean, although the term "too big to fail" has been disproven before, it still holds some weight.
Okay, U.S. Treasury bonds. No, I'm seeing a lot of U.S. Treasury bonds, which is what is spoken about, but that's not even recommended.
Corporate bond interest rates fall between 5 to 6%. That's
5 to 6%, Kevin.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So corporate, I'm gonna take you at that, but here's the thing: they're not guaranteed.
Yes.
Typically,
they're not guaranteed. So you run that slight risk, but it's like, I mean, I would compare it to like car accidents happen every day. Millions of Americans die every day. I mean, every year to them. But are you gonna not go on the roads because you have that potential danger?
But Kevin, this is money you're going to need into the future. If a company might not be there in 10 years.
You need your life too. I don't know. Just a PSA. I'm pretty sure.
No. But here's the thing: you don't necessarily have to drive. You have alternatives. You have numerous alternatives because of that. Some people aren't comfortable driving, so they can use rideshare services like Uber or Lyft, or they can just take the standard taxi, or if they would like, they can take public transportation.
Yes.
There are alternatives.
Yeah, but that's
alternatives.
That's like saying there's alternatives to bonds. Of course there are, yeah.
But with
sorry, Noel, you've been
Kevin's got a smirk on his face, but I know I'm coming after him. I've got a third reason also, which I'm about to tell. However, holding on to gold and silver. Here's the thing. Okay, fine. So you said let's look at gold's rate over 10 years.
Okay, here's another thing. Once you buy a bond, you don't need to hold on to it for the entire period. Let's say it's a 10-year bond, right? You buy it 3 years in, you're like, I don't know about this. I kind of want the money, right? It's not like you have to hold on to it. You could sell it to someone.
Okay, so gold at the 10 years. Okay, so never mind. I have this at like a low and a high. So this is from 2016. I think like the highest was right before in 2020. So today's last close was at 1724 for gold. However, they spoke about the low and the high. So this is over the course of around 5 years, and it was a 20.5% from a low of 1,050 to a high of 2,070.
If you look at gold price now, it's at 1,700 per ounce. If you look at gold price in 2000, it's actually that's a lot lower. Hold up.
Really, Kevin? It is, huh?
Let me.
No, I'm the one with the smirk on my face. Would you like to rethink your answer about bonds versus? No. Really?
Okay, let's see here. In the past, gold has gone up a lot and it's gone down a lot. Kevin. So between 2010 at its peak of 1709 and it dropped by almost 40%.
So did stocks in March, if not farther, actually.
Yeah, but wasn't your
no
whole
investment
point,
is risk-free?
Wasn't your whole point that gold is very non-risky?
Value. I'm sorry?
Didn't you say it was very non-risky? It holds value.
It holds value for the aspect of moving forward. And if I did, you can probably find it in this recording. However, with gold, which with commodities, what it's meant to be, there's 4 segments that Ray Dalio has also spoken about, which is he talks about stocks, bonds, commodities such as gold and silver, and real estate. And so with gold and silver, you want to make sure you're not losing to inflation. That's what allows you to
also do. Another thing.
And by the way, I'd like to say this.
Yes.
One thing, Kevin. The reason why gold's value always consistently goes up is for 2 reasons. One is there's more people who want to buy it, and 2, we keep on printing more money.
Okay.
But continue going on. Go ahead. That's all.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that a corporate bond yield rate was what, 5 to 6%, but over 10 years. But gold price 10 years ago was actually higher than it is now.
Yes. At a peak. But take any other time that wasn't like just like at a peak. You can take one isolated incident, or I'm sorry, 2 isolated incidents of a peak and another peak. Well, a peak and a drop, and try to say, well, it's not worth it.
No, we're at a peak right now.
Are you sure?
Yeah. If you look at the gold price, we're at a peak right now.
We're not at a peak. We're falling from a peak. The peak was around like 2050.
Excuse me?
$2,000 at $2,050, not 2050 the year, 2050.
That was time travel confirmed.
What? You have time traveling suspicions, Kevin?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I do now.
Well, here's the thing also. So lastly, it's this. Gold and silver are commodities that are used in devices, computers, phones.
See, that's something I've always been talking about. There's a lot of heavy metals out in space. I don't know how viable space mining is right now. It'll probably take at least a decade or 2 to make that. Oh, there goes me.
There goes Kevin playing peekaboo again. I'm calling.
It'll take a decade or 2 to make that more viable, but still, once that hits, Gold and silver are going to go down the drain.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Down the drain.
Okay. Why? Just because a new metal comes in?
Because it's difficult to mine gold. That's why it retains its value, because gold supply is very limited, but gold demand keeps increasing. So guess what happens when you go off to your nearest asteroid and you mine like 10 tons of gold?
Well, one is we don't know what you would mine for. All we know is you would mine for something. Okay? I've necessarily not thought about mining for gold, but I thought of, hey, is it possible you mine for something new, a new type of metal?
No, most metals are discovered. It's not like there's some hidden space alloy.
Oh, well,
like
then you
element
find
zero.
a new metal that's just very interesting.
It's not like you'll find iridium or like element zero or anything like that. You're just going to go up there and you're going to find a lot of what we have now. Because there's so many super colliders particle accelerators that any theorized arrangement of any theorized arrangement of like the protons and electrons is done. Well, not any, but like within a good range is done. So like it's not going to be like some hidden element that you've never seen before with like 5 protons and 2 neutrons, because we've already done that.
Well, you could. Okay, well, regardless of the metal you get up there, if it's rare, there will be a lot of value for it. That doesn't necessarily mean people are willing to drop everything they have for it. Same thing with real estate or museum quality artwork. Why is gold and silver more popular? Because they are cheaper than spending $2,000 on an ounce of gold is cheaper than spending $200,000 on one home.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, what happens when the gold supply doubles?
You don't know if it will double. Kevin, it takes time for things like that. You first mine and you get a little bit, and then you get more and more. But here's the thing, we also use so much of commodities.
Okay.
You're forgetting how much we're using.
Okay, but here's another random question, right? Okay. What happens if there's a gold mine that suddenly appears in like, I don't know, South America or something, and it's like it constitutes half of the world's gold, or like gold supply. What happens? Gold value drops. Why? Because supply increases, demand stays the same.
Okay. Demand will increase,
but not as much as supply.
True. If supply increases rapidly, it'll decrease the price of gold. I'm not denying that. That's true.
Yes. So,
but
in the short term, relatively short term, next decade or so, gold is a good hedge. But it's not the be all end all you seem to be.
I'm not saying it's be all end all. No. I'm an avid supporter of investing in stocks. I invest in stocks. I'm not saying it's the be all end all. I'm not saying it's the best thing ever. But I am saying is that it's a good vehicle in which to put your money in. At least I believe so right now, when you're trying to save up money for something long term. And you don't
well, you have your opinions. I have my opinions. We'll compare notes in 10 years, see how it goes.
Yeah, we can totally do that, Kevin. You're on.
Well, anyway, we've exhausted all of our topics today.
And then more
all articles. And we've been arguing for like the past 10 minutes. But what episode is this? Episode 12 or something?
Yes, this is episode 12. And any of you viewers, all you viewers out there, if you can, put in the comments, what are you guys' thoughts for commodities like gold and silver, or you're against them? And if you have
new points, feel free to bring them up. We aren't all knowing. We're not omniscient. If there's something we missed, bring it up and we'll argue about it next time.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining with us. And we'll catch you at episode number 13. Bye-bye.